So welcome to my night kitchen. I hope you're all having a brilliant Sunday evening, nice and cozy and warm and safe in your own house and having a good time, and I hope you've had a fantastic weekend. So what I'm doing today is I'm making my homemade passion fruit jam with organic passion fruit and organic sugar, organic lemon juice. So they're the only three ingredients that are going into it. Don't have to add any pectin because the pectin is already on the insides of the passion fruit shells, which we boil. So as you can hear, my jars are boiling away, ready to be popped into the oven to dry. So I'll be back. 1 litre of passion fruit juice. That was 30 passion fruit cut in half and poured into the jug, and the shells, which are here, that's half of all the shells. So 30 passion fruit, I kept 30 shells, 30 half shells, and just threw the rest out in the bin. I've washed them and cleaned them all out, and they're ready now to go into a big pot, and I'm going to boil these down. That way we can separate this purple part off, and we just use the inside. This has got all the pectin in it, and that pectin will make the jam nice and gelled. Okay, so now what we have here is half of the 30 passion fruit shells, so that's 15 full shells or 30 half shells, into a saucepan of water, and I'm going to boil that. And we want to boil it for, I'm not sure exactly how much the exact time is. I know when I look at it, and the outer purple shell will separate from the white inner part of the shell. So we want to keep that white bit, and we will scoop that out with a spoon later and throw the purple part into the compost or into my worm farm, and the white part I'm going to save that with a tiny bit of the water from this pot, and I will actually put these in a blender and blend it into a puree. So I will come back then when we're at that step. So it's boiling along really nicely. You can see that some of the shells are starting to look a little bit softer, and I'm just going to push down the ones now that are still exposed, because I want them all to get that purple shell off. So I'll just do that, and I'll be back. And so after I've pushed this down, what we're looking for now is that the insides of the shells are going to go more of a transparent look, and all the shells are getting really soft now, which is perfect. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer just to let those skins really soften off the insides, and then we'll pop them out and scoop the insides from the outsides. Let that cool down a bit, because you don't ever want to put anything really hot into your blender. That's just dangerous. I don't want to be like burning myself or anybody else. So we'll have to let them sit and cool a little bit. That's where all our pectin's going to come from, is those white insides. Passion fruit's wonderful for its abundant pectin in those white parts of the shell. So that's going to make our jam set really nicely. These are my jars that I'm going to use. I just bought these from Flash Harry, just down my local shop, from the lovely lady who runs the place. I love going in there and supporting her in my local shop. And they've got the little suction tops on them, so what I'm going to do is put them into some boiling hot water, and I'm going to boil them for 10 minutes, and then I am going to carefully take them out with my tongs, and I'm going to dry them just in the oven, just to make sure there's no water left behind, because I want the lid and the jar as sterile as I can get it, because we don't want any nasties growing in our jam. So once my shells are finished, I will use the pot to do that, and then while they're in the oven drying, I shall make the actual jam itself. Now, while we're waiting for these shells to boil, I thought maybe I'd also discuss sugar. Okay, so there is always quite a bit of sugar in jam, and it is a treat, and we won't pretend it's an everyday, all the time, eat the whole jar type of thing, but I like to use organic sugar because my passion fruit are organic, so I want everything as healthy in the way of, we don't want any chemicals in our homemade stuff. So, and I prefer to use the raw sugar. It's a personal choice. I just would prefer not to use a bleached sugar. I just think it adds to it my personal taste, and yeah, so this is the one I use. I just get that from the local Woolworths, and yeah, I really like it. So also, normally I would recycle jars and I wouldn't buy new jars, but unfortunately I didn't have any spare jars this time, and these are great size jars to make your jam in, and once it's open you just pop them in the fridge to keep your jam nice, and it'll last for quite some time. I don't know exactly, it never lasts long enough for me to worry about whether it's how long it's gonna last, because I just love passion fruit jam, especially on scones. A bit of cream. Shh, don't tell anybody. Okay, so we're also going to add in to this jam just 1 lemon in this case, but you can put juice of 1.5 lemons. I just went for a big lemon, and I never make things by exact recipes, because when you're dealing with fruit the sizes will vary, so it's going to make your results vary. So what I'm going to do is we'll just add little bits at a time of the sugar, and I will let you know in the end how much I actually use of the sugar in my jam. Okay, now we're going to stop the camera steaming up. You can see how they're translucent a bit now. They look good to start separating from their shells. So what I'm going to do, it's always too hot to handle like this, so I'm just going to turn the heat off and let them cool down a bit so I don't burn myself, because that will be crazy hot. Now, I'm just going to double check that they're all good. They look good. They all look good. Oh, that one's not so much, so we're just going to sink that one right down in the water. And these skins should just peel away quite easily now. Put that one there. It's perfect. And it should scoop out very easily once this water cools down. Okay, so this is how it peels away. It just should peel away that simply. Like you can see if I hold it up here. I'm sorry, I'm doing this one-handed. But it just peels off just like that. That's how soft you want it. So I've just held back around 2 cups of the passion fruit water from the shells, so I'm just going to hold that aside, because what happens is you need a little bit of this for inside your blender when you stick your shell insides into the blender, because if you don't have that they can get quite they can get a bit stuck. So anyway, I never know how much exactly I'm going to need, so I just hold back what I can. No point chucking it down the sink till you're finished with it. So there we have that, and I'll just continue scooping out with a spoon the insides of my shells. So I'm a bit impatient. These are still extremely hot, but it's starting to get a bit late. You can't see because it's getting dark and my kitchen light blue. So Just going to
scoop at them.
scoop it out as best as I can.
It's easier to do it.
Can you just turn this off because this is... Okay, so my jars are boiling away over here, and while that's happening, I've just juiced my lemon. That's just a coffee mug, and we've got the insides of the shells. They're very soft and very mushy. It's not my favourite part of making jam. Yeah. It's a messy job, but once it's done, it's completely brilliant. Now here we've got that bit that we held back. Now I don't have any fancy machines in my kitchen for doing this, so I'm just going to use I've got a Nutri-Ninja, and I'm going to pop those into the Nutri-Ninja cup, and we're going to blend them up into a pulp, ready to go into the juice of the passion fruit, and they just go together, the lemon juice and then the sugar. So once those jars have boiled, and pop those in the oven, I can get started. What you definitely don't want is any air in the jars. So what I do is I fill the actual jars up with the water, so there's no air pockets, so they're completely 100% covered in the water and boiling away for 10 minutes. In the Nutri-Ninja, we have the passion fruit insides, the shell insides, and just enough water to cover it to keep it liquid, because you don't want it to get all stuck in the Nutri-Ninja. Okay, so I'm just going to do that right now, and I've got a second lot to do, and you just want to make it a puree, and that's all you have to do. Now, as you can see, that's actually getting a little bit stuck in the top. It's not enough liquid, so I'm going to just add a little bit more liquid from my jar right here, and that should get it moving. Okay, so here's almost a litre or 30 passion fruit in my jug, and I'm just going to tip that straight into my pan like so. Oh, so good. It smells so good. So that's the passion fruit. Now I want you to take a look at this beautiful puree. Look how pretty it is. It's all purple. So that whole lot goes in all together. Now I'm just going to scrape that out. Okay, so back to the pot. We've got our puree, and we've got passion fruit juice. I'm going to add my one very large lemon juice. And that's in there. Now, I'm going to start with 1 cup of sugar. But first, let's get the heat on. Okay, so it's about 1 cup of sugar, and I'm just going to tip that straight in. And what we're going to do is we're going to let that all boil up together and just keep stirring it as we go. And if I feel the need to add some more sugar, I will. And there's going to be a consistency that we're looking for. So what I'm going to do is pop a little saucer into my freezer. So when the jam is ready, what we do is you put the hot jam onto a frozen plate, and when it forms a skin on top of that little drop, you know that it's thick enough. So here we go, all in together, and just stir it in. And it's going to start to bubble, and of course you're going to be very careful when it's bubbling like that. You do not want to pop that on the skin because it burns bad. So be very careful, everyone, very careful. Now it's just coming to bubbling now. Now it's very thick. I may just add a tiny little bit more of my pectin water that I boiled the shells in, just so it doesn't kind of start catching right from the get-go. It smells so good. So, I don't know if you've ever tasted passion fruit jam, but passion fruit jam actually tastes a little bit like super tart apricot jam. It's not super tart that you can't eat it. It's just not sickly sweet. It's got a beautiful tang, and that's what I really love about it. It's a bit like my mulberry jam, also has a bit of a tang to it. Every year that I've made this, one year I made 35 jars of jam. I wasn't left with a spare one. Everybody loves it. If you've got a passion fruit vine and you haven't made jam before, I really strongly suggest that if you get enough excess passion fruit, and it's only the beginning of my season, I hate to imagine how many jars of jam I'm going to end up with, and I can already see that I do not have enough jam jars prepared. I'm going to end up needing to prepare a few more jars. But that's okay. I'll make sure I keep those ones for myself, the leftovers, because they won't be the new jars. So just mixing away. I've just added the rest of that water. So in the end, I'm actually quite glad I held back the whole 2 cups of the pectin water. You never know when you're going to need to add a bit, and I don't want to add anything else. I don't want to put any water in here at all. I just want to add the ingredients that I started with. Okay, so you can see it starting to really get heated up now. I've actually put 3 cups of sugar into this, and it's going to sit here and boil. I'm going to let this boil with its lid on, because this could get very splashy and we don't want to get burnt. And it's going to form a little bit of a foam on the top, and that's okay. We just scrape that foam away at the end, because you don't want that in your jam jar. I mean, I'm sure there's something wrong with it, but that's what I do just for presentation, just to get that little sludge off. So I'm going to let it boil now for, I'm going to check it. I'll check it probably, give me 3 minutes. I'm going to check on it, and just when it's starting to, you don't want to let it catch on the bottom. Don't want to burn the jam. That would just be not okay. Smells so good, people. So good. I wonder how many jars this is going to make. It looks more than 4, hey? Oh well. It's all trial and error when I make jam. I haven't been able to make it for a couple of years because unfortunately I just haven't had the passion fruit to do it. I grew some new vines that they've been in for almost exactly 12 months, and I can't even tell you how many hundreds of passion fruit are hanging from it. This was just the early drop ones, and yeah, I've just been collecting them over the last week or so, just letting them sit there. And if I don't get this done, they're not going to be any good anymore just to make jam. So I had to make sure I made this jam before they were no good. Oh, this smells divine. Absolutely amazing. Might even post a jar out to somebody as a gift. Ouch. See, you get burnt. So I'm just going to let that simmer away and stand away from this pot now, because it's starting to get old. Okay, so my wonderful jam is boiling away, and it's just about done. I've ended up putting in the full kilo of sugar because it's not me who decides how much sugar goes in, it's the jam. So it needs to be dripping off the spoon about 2 drips a second. And then we know it's thick enough. I'm just letting it keep boil for a little bit longer because you need to make sure that all the sugar is fully dissolved and it's all done its thing. And then I'm going to pop it into some jars. Now the jars are still warm. You mustn't put hot boiling jam into a cold jar because it could crack, and you do not want your jars to crack. Not only will you end up with very hot jam everywhere, but it's a waste of a jar. So let's be safe and make sure our jars are nice and warm, and then we'll pop them in and I'll be back. Now, here you can see the speed that that's coming off my spoon. That's beautiful. Okay, so now there's a tiny bit of a skin on that, but there's no froth. So I'm just going to give it a bit of a stir and then try as cleanly as possible. Look, if you've got a funnel, get a funnel. I don't have a funnel, so there's a few little white seeds in there. They're just underdeveloped seeds, but they don't matter. We are going to eat those seeds. Right, so I'm going to carefully ladle until I finished filling each of these jars. So I'm going to fill these jars up to about where the lid screws on. Just leave that a little tiny bit of space there. So after we finish pouring these, and as you can see, I just did spill a little bit on the edge. Now I'm going to clean that up because, with a bit of paper towel, because if I don't, I might create a faulty seal, and I do not want a faulty seal because I do not want moldy jam. Nothing worse than moldy jam. Well, actually, there's heaps of things worse than moldy jam, but why go to all the effort just to have it spoil? Now, as you can see, I've popped all these jars upside down, and this way they will cool with the jam hitting the lid. That certainly helps now to sterilize the whole lid. And when I turn these up the other way, what it does is it suctions down the little tops, and that keeps an air vacuum on the jam. Now I've popped some jam onto my crystal dish here, and see how it's not running away. It's beautiful. This jam looks absolutely delicious. Actually, I might just try a little bit. I can't help myself. That I've been waiting for so long to make this jam. I actually had to grow the vines just to make these jam jars. I also have been sneaking some in with a little bit of the old Gippsland yogurt, the natural and creamy variety, and it is just so good. And if you chop up a banana with that, it's like my favorite little treat. Just not too much yogurt because it's got too much sugar in it, but I can justify the sugar from the beautiful passion fruit. Passion fruit is actually really high in potassium, so you shouldn't eat too many passion fruits. So it seems such a waste to have all these passion fruit and not preserve them somehow. So I choose to make jam, and I'm sure you can freeze it and preserve it that way and use it as you like, but I like jam. I could not wait to make scones, so I have made myself a piece of disgusting white toast and yeah, I'm gonna eat this right now because I've waited maybe 2 years for this. So bon appetit.